Can I go to the bar now? The vendor actually thought it went well, because initially they thought I was going to go for the jugular. And a little history on that. When I first got into the job, when I first got into the job, let's just say that as an administrator who wanted some help, I was a little demanding, and the support wasn't used to having somebody call them and be demanding, because they're, I guess, used to the stereotypical timid, demure librarians. So I went to the first users group conference, and everybody from the company was astonished because they thought I was some old crotchety, bitchy guy. And I come walking in with my chops and, you know, dressed up, and they're like, "Holy, who the fuck are you? Oh, you're that guy?" And then I, you know, started buying them drinks at the bar, and it got a little bit better. It was really hard to go for that kill. And go for that jugular, because, you know, I was only given a week, and I was venturing to some areas that I had not been able to play with before, and was hoping for a little bit more time. The vendor actually also, after the presentation, approved for my handouts, which you guys got, and the presentation, to go on the support website for other people that were not able to attend that session or not attend the conference at all, to at least go through it, which I thought was pretty cool, because initially they weren't too keen on that. After one of the other vendor employees walked up to me and gave me a copy of their snort logs from when we were doing one of their scans, like that's supposed to be a you know, security measure or something. But he thought it was cool because we caught you. Whatever. One of the other administrators that came to my presentation came up to me afterwards in the bar. And not that, you know, I hang out at the bar the whole time at this conference. No, I don't want to give you that impression at all. That there's a real audio attack vulnerability that is out, that created a similar situation with this system, in that it would connect to one of the same ports and start creating bogus processes and just bog the whole system down. And I'd been talking with support guys about it, but nothing had been sent out to the user community at all about this. One of the committee members for a library system up in the Northwest, who just happened to be on looking for a new system administrator, was actually in my presentation and came up to me afterwards and said that I had scared the shit out of her. I'm like, good, give me the job. I got the rejection letter, which is fine. I got something better. And then also other system administrators that contacted me for other ideas, thoughts, and so forth. And we were starting to share more information than what was before, which was one of my intents. A little bit after this, I was downward directed that we're going to migrate to a different library system, which in my opinion was a total piece of crap. Also, this system would be centrally located, not in my location, and would remove most of my system administrator duties and pretty much leave me to doing basic PC support. Barf. And I won't go into the hollow promises by the director. We won't do this. No, we'll stay. Yeah, right. Okay. So I found a new job and left, because it was bad enough that, you know, they shoved this down my throat and didn't really talk to the people in the field about what did the libraries really need. It was a decision way up because somebody was making backdoor deals. Hey, look, the government. So there was also some drama. And he called my you have to hear apparently some. I moved to Vegas. All right, I'm at. Because they were really disappointed that I had left the community, and also they were wondering why, because apparently there was some long thread about security in the system and whatnot this past spring, and they were bewildered on why I didn't speak up. So, end result, and raise the awareness for at least the group of people that were there and that they've talked to, so that there's a ball rolling with that. And I doubt if there's any changes to the company at all, and I hope, but kind of also doubt that there's been really any substantial changes to the application at all, but at least it got some people thinking. Was it a true full vulnerability assessment? Hell no. It was a start. It got some people pointing in the right direction, and some obvious stuff was at least identified. Any questions? Comments or thoughts? Yeah. No, and when the presentation was done, he made the cell phone call and the box was disconnected. The original box that they were going to let me use, they were in the process of setting it up, and the box died. So they had to borrow a box that they were actually going to send to a new client, throw my stuff on it, set it up. So when we were done, my stuff was purged, and they went and set it up for the new client and then got it sent out. So it was kind of, no. Also, the agreement that we had signed was in preparation of that presentation. It wasn't for any further. I kind of wish I could have, but was unable to. Yes. Sure. Correct. That is actually one of the things that I mentioned in my presentation, to that, you know, you do your own assessment, and then the next step is you bring in somebody from the outside that doesn't know anything about it, because that's, in a sense, you know, one of the evil hackers is what they're doing, is they're looking from it from the outside, and what can we do with it? And yeah, that is one of the things I recommended to them. But most libraries don't have that sort of money. It depends on the situation and what they're looking at, and you know, each consultant or each company is different. And I have not really done any coordination on contracts in regards to that. I know what you know, I've charged for what little consulting I've done in regards to this particular system, but since I left the job and I'm no longer in the environment, I've not done anything with it since. Plus, my current employer's not too keen on me doing any consulting. Yes. First, just the basic, you know, you have a responsibility to keep your system secure and keep your information private, or keep their patrons' information private. That's why, for example, a lot of libraries, when the Patriot Act came out, they configured, if they could, configured their library system to only store who has the current item checked out. There's no back history. Yes, there are, and it depends in regards to what state you live in. Okay, and so depending where you're at, I would first research for your state's library commission and see what they say. I lived in Nebraska, so the Nebraska Library Commission has a thing on this is our intent on for libraries in this state and what the privacy policy should be. Now, what does the local library board consider, and what's the local guidelines on it? Since I worked in a federal institution, it's a total different ball of wax. The general consensus was, we'll try to do the best we can with these private, with what the American Library Association says, with the State Library Association was, just because those are good guidelines. But since we're a federal institution and any boss can come down and say, I want this information, there were some other issues and concerns with that. But it was addressed, and pretty much for our situation, we would have to get like the lawyers involved that were associated with our organization, say, okay, this boss just came in and wants this information. We need to get the right approvals and documentation first before we can hand it over, was what my boss said. Now, what would actually happen when it came down is a totally different story. But that's the same in any other operation either. So it's not just specifically our office. Yes, I'll give you a perfect example. Before we migrated to the Solaris box, we were keeping the entire back history, because we had some staff members that when items came in, they would just go and scan them to check them back in and throw them back on the shelf. Well, infamously for a while, we'd have our technology books coming back, and a lot of technology books have a CD in them. Well, they were walking off. Well, if you've already checked the book back in and you've purged the last patron, you don't know who to go after to get the CD back. So instead of checking the item first for condition, whether it was damaged, whether something's missing, they would just check it in and put it on a shelf, and then they got all bitched out of shape because they couldn't go back. We can't go back to the system to see who had it checked out last, instead of changing their procedures of checking the item first. So human complacency is probably the worst culprit in regards to that. The American Library Association, when this all came out, their recommendation is you keep the minimum of what you need. And it's all dependent on what the library operation's like, what the guidelines are from the local and state level, and what they have to keep and what they don't have to keep. So for the library that you're going to, unfortunately, you got to go and do a little research or ask questions with either the staff and or the library director or the library board, and what their policies are. Most of the libraries I've been involved with or associated with, they keep the minimum, and that was it. When we migrated over, I just happened to tell my staff that, hey, we migrated over, so all the previous history's gone, and oh, it's not going to keep it anymore. Sorry. That was a configuration thing that I just forgot to check off to keep the past history. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that since you were recording. Any other questions? All right, thank you for your time. I was hopefully it was some enlightenment for you, and I'll be around till Sunday afternoon. If you got anything else or you want to talk to me offline. Thank you much.